Hey folks, if you were on Twitter, you probably noticed one of the biggest Bitcoin robberies probably of its kind on these so-called verified accounts. I noticed it when I got a feed from Elon Musk saying that, hey, I'm giving back $2,000 if you give me $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. And immediately I reacted because it didn't sound like it would be something real. And then I went to his Twitter account and the feed was not there. So the feed would only show if you were to follow one of these verified accounts. Nonetheless, afterwards it came out, I'm sure you know this story, that many, if not all, the verified accounts were hacked. And lots of Bitcoins apparently were taken away. And so out of curiosity, I wanted to see whether people actually bought into this tweet. And I started reading the comments and noticed very shortly that a lot of people had already, within minutes, given away their Bitcoins. One of the most disturbing one was a guy who said that he had given all of his Bitcoin. I think it was worth $80K or something like that, and that it was his lifetime savings. And he sounded like he was panicking and wanted to have his money back. And people were commenting and say, hey, you're not going to get it back. And that was probably the saddest comment that I read, because if it were true, it would have been an extremely sad situation. And it really broke my heart that something like that would happen. But unfortunately, there is no reversal of the Bitcoin. So if this comment were true, this person had lost all their savings. Now, that is one part of the story that I wanted to say, and bear with me again, my unscripted video. Another part I wanted to also mention is that I have become more and more turned off by how Twitter has turned out these past years. I joined initially Twitter in 2009 when I was in 2010, I think, when I was an intern at Yahoo, just because a lot of techies back then used it. And at that time, it was a very innocent way of, just having a short communication among the people who were, in this case, at Twitter, Twitter, Yahoo. And there was just nothing more than that. We would just share. And for me, because I was green and I was intern, I was learning a lot from this sort of veterans in the tech, and I was eager to learn. So for me, it was a great opportunity. And then I stopped being active on it because I really had to focus on school and work at the same time. So you really don't have a lot of time to tweet so much. And then I joined because of the previous election, and immediately I noticed how it has become extremely political, if not borderline dangerous / toxic, the way in which it had turned into this open forum of totally anonymous people exercising their so-called right of speech, which had then turned into right out hate speech. And that actually correlates a lot with a lot of studies done in psychology. When we do not interact with a person in front of us, we appear to not really taking into account other people's emotions. And because, for example, on Twitter, most people are anonymous. They don't have, they have fake names, they have fake profiles, and they have fake pictures. They give themselves a permission to basically exercise the right of speech, which is borderline hate speech in many instances. And then if you guys remember, we talked about the reptilian brain, talking about really operating just from the reptilian brain at that point. because it's just at a point where I'm just going to say whatever I want. You don't know me. There's no way there is any consequences, and I don't care basically how, if I hurt your feelings, I'm gonna say, come right out and say it. Now, don't mistake what I just said with people being sensitive about what is being said. I'm not saying that, because we need to have freedom of speech. I'm talking about most people on Twitter who go off tangent and basically have I call it a word vomit. They just vomit on other people the frustration that they're feeling right now, and they frankly don't care. And in the meantime, they hurt a lot of people. So you could see that in those comments as well. Going back to this research studies that I just talked about, they have actually done a lot of studies in about car rage or driving rage, whatever you want to call it. And that's also another indicator where people tend to show more aggression when they're driving cars, because they don't see the person right in front of them. We get cues, emotional cues, from seeing people's facial expressions, and as a result we tend to be more empathetic when we see each other as opposed to when we don't. That's why it's more likely for even a normal person to start really being bitching about everything, or cursing and whatnot when they're driving to other cars, because they don't see them as humans, they see them as machines. And the same analogy is true for the anonymity on Twitter, that the freedom of speech has more or less turned into this hate speech. So tying that back into what happened to this robbery, modern day robbery, was that people were commenting and really making fun of this guy. And if this guy were to say the truth, probably he was in great pain, because he lost everything, and he really thought that Elon Musk would double his money and give that back to him. And that made me think about the thing that we value a lot in life, and the things that we have come to value in life, in our modern life. One of them is money. Obviously, money is very important. We need to have it because we need to have a more or less comfortable life in terms of our daily needs and our family's needs and whatnot. And obviously that's very important, but operating too much from that non-empathetic, non-logical, and more reptilian brain that we've been talking about, it appears to have really switched our minds towards putting much more emphasis on that, as opposed to other things that are even more important in life. And one of them is time. So the notion of time is a man-made. If you think about it from the nature level, from electron level, at the quantum level, time really has no meaning, because for an electron, time is nothing. Things just are, basically, at the subatomic level. But for us to be able to have a way of communicating with each other, like, hey, I'll see you tomorrow, and I'm gonna call you tonight, we have come up with the concept of time. And so as a result, we have also put an emphasis or non-emphasis on time. But if you look at a person's lifespan, let's say we live 80 years. There are certain parts in our life where we are more productive. There are certain parts in our lives where we are more physically engaged, other parts where we are more intellectually engaged, and these are all sort of part of it. Each stage within this man-made time, it's supposed to And we give meaning to each part of these sort of time spaces within our lifespan. And we choose whether knowingly or unknowingly to do something with it. So let's say, for example, a scientist, he or she chooses to do certain research and publish a paper. Another person chooses to, have 4 kids and build a life for their kids. Everybody chooses how to use their time differently. However, there are times in our lives when we are basically, if you think of your time as in this case like a Bitcoin, basically you're giving away these Bitcoins whenever you spend your time thinking about something or someone in your life. And so as a result, you can call it you being robbed off your time, if you will, robbed off or you're giving it away, if you will, whatever you want to call it. It is something that is irreversible. It's exactly like that Bitcoin that this guy gave. So his life savings were this, I think it was 8 Bitcoin, he said. That was his life savings. And so tie that back into, 80 years of a lifetime, let's say. And he gave it all away, right? And he was really, really pissed about it. And at the same token, we are giving our life Bitcoins or our lifetimes to things that should not really, really matter, but for some reason they do because the society is telling us, and we're basically giving it away free. Another thing I wanted to add to this mix, because then I'm going somewhere with it, is that when we are, for example, on a social media, especially something like Twitter, because of this ecosystem of, you can call it hate speech, if you will, it's to some extent very incentivized to be a certain way, to sort of not really pay attention to what are the consequences of the things I'm saying. I'm saying it because I'm thinking it, and everybody else should think it the same way, and I don't freaking care what goes on with you. And I literally was just watching a interview that came out with that Bitcoin guy, Craig Wright, and he was kind of saying the same thing, that how this environment, this ecosystem, for example, on Twitter, can be used to that extent. So going back to the question that I get a lot, people say, I'm afraid of being brainwashed in the future by artificial intelligence and the government and all that. If we really, really think about it, we are already being influenced by, for example, something like Twitter, because if you notice how people react, most people, and I'm sure you are not one of them, most people do not step back and think about whatever is posted, whatever comments are there, but they go into reptilian brain directly and react, even with the things that they think is logical, but they don't even really put an emphasis into thinking, how is this impacting me and how am I impacting others? And so it becomes like this flow or this wave, big wave in the ocean where everybody sort of, goes with it. And that's human nature. But my point is that we need to be much more aware. We need to work on our consciousness, because from 2020 forward, the decade that are about to come, with this mindset, we're not going to survive. With artificial intelligence, robots, and everything else, humanity will not survive if we keep on being manipulated and being influenced and let ourselves being robbed off of the Bitcoin of our lives like this every single day on, for example, Twitter. To give you an example, if you're familiar with my work, I left Silicon Valley and everything last year as soon as I graduated, because I really felt the need that I wanted to focus on my own work and my own self. I was literally tired to do whoever else's dream was. I downsized my life. I don't live the way I lived before. And I said, you know what? I'm happy with just eating a piece of bread every day if I have to, but I'll have to have my coffee and some chocolate. But yeah, that aside, and I thought, you know, I really want to do that. And that was also in lines with me realizing how much of my life, how much of my time I had given away to everybody in my entire life. And when I did an assessment, and I had to do that assessment, by the way, it was not by choice. Something happened and it just sort of, I don't want to go into it. Maybe I shared with you some other time, but it was like one of these moments. But I realized that since I was a kid, I had given my life away to pretty much every single person, mainly because I was a very sensitive kid. Also, at an emotional level, I appeared to be more mature even than some of the adults around me in my life. And I always emotionally had to kind of be the mature one, and I felt like I had to take care of other people, making sure that they're okay and they're not upset. And the same went on pretty much the rest of my life, because then I got involved in relationships, and then I got into school, and then I got into jobs. And so it was literally most of it, I'm not saying all of it, because obviously I learned a lot too from everything that happened, but most of it was really not my life. Most of it was everybody else's life. Now, many people don't do it, and I really applaud you for that. Or maybe you think you don't do it, but if you really think you're actually doing it. But I did it because I put too much emphasis on everything else than myself. And so that is when I decided to leave everything and pretty much everyone. And I said, I really don't want to have to do anything with these people, and also with the life that I had, because the remaining of my life, I want to spend it on myself and on my own work, my own questions that I've had for many, many years, that I really had to pause throughout my life just because people didn't like it. People didn't like the way I looked, because they said, you don't look like a scientist. What are you talking about? You should go and do this and that. And I did that to make my mom happy, for example. Or they said, oh, you know, you're not the typical person to do this and that. And then the list goes on. But that is beside the point. The point is that the moment I decided to take charge of my own life, I then stopped giving my time, stopped giving the bitcoins of my life to other people. And that is the robbery that is happening at every moment in our lives if we're not careful, and if we operate on the reptilian brain, because we keep giving away our bitcoins. But in this case, it's the bitcoins of your lifetime, but you're still giving it away digitally. So when we are on Twitter, let's just put myself as an example. When I'm on Twitter and I'm influenced by somebody who says something, who pretty much has probably no background, they just said it because they just felt like it. They don't even have a background in terms of, like many people who are obsessed with something in their lives, they sacrifice a lot of things in their lives. These people, they just go on and they just say something, they just vomit words based on their own emotions or based on their own reptilian brain. And then everybody else follows through because this person was brave enough to say something. And at the same time, then if I let myself be influenced by this person who, first of all, I don't know who it is because there is no picture and there is no name, there's no way for me to know whether he or she has even any background in it, and I let myself be influenced in it, and I lose the time that I have been given for free in this lifetime, I let myself be robbed of the neurons that I've been freely given, of all these cells that I've been freely given. This miracle, this system is a freaking miracle. And I'm giving it away to somebody who has absolutely no business in running my life. And that is what we're doing every single day on Twitter, because we just give it a name, that in this case it was a Bitcoin that was stolen. But if you think of it in terms of the moments of your life where you could have been doing something way more with this miracle of a system that you have, this whole thing, you could have done it, then we let ourselves be influenced by people who have basically also letting themselves be robbed of their Bitcoin. So we're just getting upset that somebody got robbed of Bitcoin. What about my life? What about every single moment that I let myself be influenced on Twitter based on these things? And Twitter is just one example, by the way. I have nothing against Twitter. This could be anything. This could be a conversation I have with people in my life. It could be me wasting my time, my Bitcoin, on bad relationships, for example. Do you know what I mean? That's what Now, where am I going with this? Here's what I try to say is that we are given this set of neurons and this set of cells where you and I are sitting here. We don't even have to think about how this information is being transferred, which is, by the way, it's a question I've been obsessed with for most of my life. And I think I'm getting there, and I'm writing about it. But we can lose it, or we can use it. And if we let ourselves to operate solely on the reptilian brain on a daily basis, day in, day out, we will not survive this decade. Because what's about to come in terms of artificial intelligence, robotics, and the new world order, I hate that word, but that's what they call it, we're not going to survive. We're going to be robbed off of our Bitcoin of our lifetime, left and right, if we let it. Right now, it's social media, but wait until they start implementing everything that they've been working on for the past 10, 15 years. And that is all these technology that is going to come out. It's going to blow our minds away. And we're not going to survive because we're going to let our minds be manipulated of the things that will come out left and right, and we're going to lose precious time where in fact we could have worked on our system, go train ourselves to go from the reptilian to empathetic to the logical brain that we've already talked about, and actually do something with it. Being, for example, an influential person instead of being influenced, because that's what we need. We need more morally good people. We need more people who are critical thinker, and we need those people to speak up. We need those people to reveal themselves on, for example, Twitter, and start engaging so that we can start influencing this out of hand hatred ecosystem that is being built, and it's just going to get worse. So it's up to each and every one of us. We might get really sad and mad about losing Bitcoin, but what about these neurons and these cells that we're losing at every moment when we are influenced by people whose intention we are not aware of, and we just let ourselves go through these emotional waves, and just blur things out. So my point is that if you are one of those morally good people, you need to embrace it, and you need to grow it, and you need to do something with it. You don't have to do YouTube video like me or everybody else who does it. I do it, by the way. I'm extremely uncomfortable. I'm getting a little bit more comfortable now, but I do it just because I know that the word needs to come out. But if it were up to me, I would just sit in front of my computer and I would just work all day. But I also have to speak it, right? But not everybody needs to do that. You know best what you can contribute to, and you need to work on that such that you train yourself to be more in the critical thinking part of the brain and start speaking up so that you are the influencer in any shape or form. Like we talked about it last time, if you're, for example, into politics, you need to go into politics and make sure that you stay morally good, because when you are within corrupted systems, it's very easy that you get corrupted, and that's just a fact I know from personal experience. Or let's say that if you become an influencer, whatever influence you can have, you owe it to yourself and you owe it to future generation. Because if we don't do it, the future generation is going to hate us, because they're going to say, hey, you let this shit happen. You let everything go, and now humanity is in this big mess. I don't believe it, because if you know my work, you know that I believe in humanity, and I believe there's a purpose for all this that is happening. And I'll talk about it in the future, what the purpose is, but we need to take responsibility. We need to stop thinking that we don't matter, because if you're sitting here and you're able to actually hear me, you're able to see me, that means that you have a functional brain, which is a masterpiece that no one has been able to make. They are making artificial cells right now, but what they're doing, they're just copycatting. They're just looking at the real natural cell, and they just copycat. That's what they do. Nobody has created it, and you have it. You possess that tool in your brain right now and within your cells, because every cell also has a brain, by the way, and I'll talk about it in the future as well. So it's not only the brain, because we put too much emphasis on the brain. The whole system, together with electromagnetic waves that you are surrounded by. All that is in your possession, and you can use it. And if we don't start now in 2020, soon it'll be too late, because we will just go with this ocean of human hatred in the name of politics, in the name of religion, in the name of race. All of them are against humanity, because if they were really, really about humanity, nobody would talk to each other like that. No freaking way. If you knew your true core, you would be so respectful towards that core entity that is within each and every human being that you would never dare to do that. And so when we see that, it just means that those people have not even seen it yet. So if you're a morally good person, you have the responsibility to use this entity for the good. So think about it. If your lifetime is not worth anything to you, if Bitcoin is more worth to you, then think of it in terms of Bitcoin. Think of the Bitcoin that this guy lost. He let himself be robbed. We let ourselves be robbed. I let my life be robbed by those people. I benefited from them, absolutely, but maybe the benefit was like 2 years. The rest of 8+ years or whatever, I lost it to them, because I let myself be entangled with their drama. It was their drama, it was their issues, but I, unfortunately, let myself get robbed off of the best years of my life, and that is my Bitcoin that I lost. and I will never get it back, nor will you. You will never get it back. So as long as I let myself be taking away what this big waves of drama / emotions on these toxic platform without doing something constructive with it, then I am part of the problem too. Then I should stop complaining because I never took the time to actually do something about it. So that is the reason I left everything and everybody, and I said, you know what, I have only 10 more years in my life, and I don't know why I think that, I just have a feeling about it. And that 10 years I'm going to dedicate to myself and to the research that I'm doing, to the work that I'm doing. I told everybody else, I said, I gave you my whole life. You took it. I let you all take it. That was my fault. It was not their fault. It was my fault because I let myself get robbed. But I said, you know what? As of today, I'm not going to let anybody rob me off of the time that I have. And so whenever I get a chance, I think about my work. Whenever I get a chance, I talk about my work and I write about it. And I do the things that are uncomfortable, but it has to be done because it has to be documented. And every one of us has this. Remember last time we talked about purpose? Every one of us can choose one and can stick with it and change it, adapt it, change it, and do something with it, as opposed to be influenced. So what I'm trying to say at the end is that we need influencers, and we need influencers who are morally good human beings. We need more. If you're one of them, we need you. And if you know of people, you need to influence them and bring them in, because we just have to. We just have, in 2020, as of 2020, moving forward, we have no other choice. And one way we do it is by educating ourselves and becoming more and more aware of it. That's why the remaining of my lifetime, I'm dedicating this to the work that I'm doing, because I am looking at all the research that I've done in my lifetime, and I'm putting it all together to understand the core, this point of being. And by increasing our awareness of it, by understanding it, the moment we see it, we won't be able to forget it again. It cannot be unseen. Once you know the true value of you, once you've seen it with your own eyes, the true value of you, you cannot unsee it. There's no way. You cannot go back. You're like, damn, wow, I had no idea that this is it. And then you really, you cannot let yourself be robbed off of your time, or robbed off of your Bitcoin, in this case, Bitcoin of your lifetime, like we've been doing so far. So I hope this all makes sense. I know I went a little bit off tangent, but you all know me. I go unscripted. But I hope this was useful to you. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.